Greetings, Ranger fans, and Merry Christmas! And welcome to another edition of Database Rangers Power Reviews, where we take a look back on the classic episodes of Database Rangers Power Reviews as we count down the 100 weeks to the 100th and final episode. So, Merry Christmas Eve. Thank you to everyone who's choosing to spend their Christmas Eve with us tonight. So, good to see you, Sean. Good to see you, Jenny. Good to see everyone else. Welcome, Lex. Welcome to everyone coming into the chat. I am honored to to be spending Christmas Eve with all of you. We just put RJ down to bed. Just read them the night before Christmas. We watched the classic How the Grinch Stole Christmas animated feature with dinner. So trying to make a special Christmas as best we can. Welcome, Nightwing Josh. Welcome, Athena. Good to see you both as well. Yeah, it's oh, and happy birthday to your brother, Jenny. Hope he's having a safe and responsible 21st birthday. Yeah, and it's hard to believe, but this past week, RJ did have their first birthday, so that is very exciting. We'll be having a more proper birthday party this weekend with the grandparents. To celebrate, so obviously a busy week, as it will be in perpetuity, since RJ's birthday is always going to be right around Christmas. That's going to keep things busy year in, year out, right around this time. Welcome, Dyrano. Good to see you as well. So yeah, I want to remind everybody that I will be releasing I will be releasing the rapid run through and deeper look for both remaining episodes of Dino Fury tomorrow morning. So keep an eye open for that. The reviews of Void Trap will be released at 8:30 on Christmas morning, and at 9 o'clock we'll be getting the review of Secret Santa. So we'll get both the finale and the Christmas special on the same day as sort of a Christmas treat for everybody to wrap up the reviews of Dino Fury and sort of clear my schedule for the rest of the week to finish up episode 95 of Power Reviews, which is on schedule to be released on December 31st. I still have a lot of work left to do on it in this final week, because obviously I've been trying to finish up these final videos for Dino Fury. But it's looking promising. I'm putting the effects together. A lot of them are looking really good. There was one bit of effect that I hadn't quite worked out before, but I have now worked out this week. And it's coming together well. So I think I should be able to sort of thread the last of it together. I'll probably be doing a little bit of filming actually on Christmas just to try and finish up the last of the effect shots, because a number of them are kind of tricky and just require a little bit of additional, a few additional shots for that. And I think, no, it's fine, Jenny. You don't need to worry about missing that last week. I hope that you had fun with Doki Doki Precure, Lex, and welcome, Chris. Good to see you as well. Oh, and happy birthday to Dyrano tomorrow. A lot of birthdays around this week, apparently. So without any further ado, let's dive right into things. And as always, let's not forget our 3 equally non-controversial phrases. So, number 1, say it with me, chat. Black lives matter. Number 2, say it with me, chat. Fascism is bad. And number 3, say it with me, chat. Superheroes are fun. So let's dive back in with our favorite superhero, Database Ranger, as we take a look at the 58th episode of Database Rangers Power Reviews, our review of Power Rangers Super Megaforce, Episode 3, Blue Saber Saga. Ooh, why am I not getting any audio? Oh. How did that get muted? That was a little weird. Alright, now we're going to get. Yeah. I'm so glad that I did that whole, recap of what Guy had exposited during Rico the Robot, because I get to use that same sort of recap bit for recapping in so many of these episodes. And then, of course, the big high five, which I was so proud of that I actually referenced it in Grid Defense. Oh, I realized I was a little off on lining things up with the camera for the commentary this time around, so I apologize for that. And this was, of course, our first real focus episode on Mayo. Like we'd had focus episode, we'd had, you know, sort of shared focus episodes where we've had the where we've had the characters share the review with Database before, and we've had Dr. K take the lead on a couple reviews. Well, one review really, and we've had Mayo and Guy share a review. But this is really the first time that somebody outside of Database or K took on a solo review, and it felt somehow right for it to be Mayo. Mayo really needed the development that the other characters had gotten to have during year one.
What if we find out that it's all double agent? They won't. I know how to cover my tracks. And the only two people with any reason to suspect anything were T Alpha and T Beta, and they're long gone now.
Yeah.
He said something about how safe all of this is.
Yeah, T Alpha and T Beta did get sort of sucked into a transdimensional tear.
I don't think so.
And this sort of starts that whole arc of Mayo wanting to be an active part of the plot.
And it's been the safest thing for me since TV disappeared. I mean, no Kate wants my medical records, so I don't have to go back into work. And there's that other stuff.
And here's that first reference to the other stuff, which we don't find out about for almost another 30 episodes. That was the first allusion to the fact that Mayo is in the Witness Protection Program, which we don't find out anything about until episode 87. And that's like one of the only bits we actually get with DB during this episode.
Yep. What does that stand for? I haven't decided yet, but it'll let us keep track of you in the field. That way, if you get in over your head...
And I like this whole bit of Mayo just jumping in and continuing to create more and more versions of the Squee.
I mean, it's just... You're a super secret agent, man, and Kay's a dimension-hopping super genius, and DB is a Power Ranger.
I felt like that little moment was sort of the big thing to kind of really kick off Mayo's arc. Is what does that make me? And it felt appropriate. Good to see you, Dan. Good. And she's just kind of the odd person out of all this, even though she is pivotal to the plot, as we've established repeatedly. You know, she's you know, the first alternate universe counterpart that we've actually encountered here. And Kay is actually acknowledging the helpfulness of the reviews and figuring out their courses of action. And yeah, he doesn't speak out loud, but he still says the thank you. And I enjoy these sweet little moments between Mayo and Database. And just sort of anytime that I get to play with, like, the entirety of the main cast just sort of acting kind of like a little family is a lot of fun. And also the introduction of the C-Squeepio which, obviously we keep playing around with all those acronyms, is part of prepping for the Summer Saga that I had developed at this point. At this point, I knew that I was going to be covering those summer episodes. I knew it was going to be a string of 5 episodes, where I was going to send them to different dimensions. And so I was at the point where I was trying to make sure to do appropriate foreshadowing for that. And I realized that one of the things I was going to need to do in order to make that plot work was make sure that I had multiple versions of the squeak. 2 wasn't going to be enough. I needed to have 4 to go with all the characters that were going to be setting off to all those different areas.
Why can't she just tell off the monster herself?
It's also, like,
this is not the Middle Ages.
Very awkward.
Luckily, the rest of the team appears to back up their
They are very clearly just taking the script out of Go Kaiser and just kind of barely doing anything with it. A lot of awkwardness there. That was sort of an awkward thing where they morphed to regular mode and then morphed to Super Mega mode without anything happening in between. And throughout most of the rest of the series, they do just, like, go straight to Super Mega mode for most of the time. Also, the whole thing of Blue just being a swordsman is, again, them just pulling off of Go Kaiser without it actually making any sense in the context.
Otherwise, you might be waiting for a while. Doesn't look like that'll stop the Blue Ranger from taking up the challenge, though. Not unless you got his sword. It lays on his head.
He does have a lot of points.
Shoulders. Never mind. The point is that accepting this duel is a very bad idea. Even Bakar recognizes that this is silly.
But yeah, there's a number of different elements when it comes to Mayo where I really want to have somebody who really jumps into DB's world with both feet. Because nobody else is really quite like that. Nobody else has that same dynamic with the world. The more Morpotzeners just kind of blindly accept everything as just what's happening and roll with everything. And Guy is, very serious about everything. Kay is always always very serious about everything. But Mayo actually enjoys it, and that little note from Guy about, her being the only one with a chance at a normal life is intended to just sort of set up that whole conflict within herself that she doesn't actually want that. As we address in episode 89, when she has that conversation with DB, how, it's not that he cost her chance at a normal life, it's that he saved her from having a normal life. For some people, a normal life is what you want, but that's not always the case for every person. And specifically for Mayo, she's looking to have adventures and to make a difference.
But she does manage to find time to hand off her Super Mega Saber before he heads off to base Katana at the beach and morph directly into Super Mega mode. They can do that? Anyway, the monster cues up his blade of infinity, and although Noah is fully prepared to deflect it, he's not quite prepared for the trio of bruises to grab his arms and legs.
Yeah, this guy's a cheater.
Surprise, surprise, the evil space alien is a cheater, and a nearby unmorphed Emma has to go to Super Mega mode to help out, making that whole normal Megaforce mode morph sequence from the beginning even more pointless. The others aren't far behind, sailing in on the skyship to help take on the bruises and
This is definitely this is definitely an odd episode in the context of them being high school students, because nothing about the way that they operate here feels like the lives of high school students. Because they're really just taking the plot from Go Kaiser here. And also, I did want to continue to reinforce the existence of Zagger, because he is, an important part of how we kick off year 3 with the conversion of the Alphabet Soup Ship into their sort of Zagger Catzor. And as I said before, yes, Zagger is still on the ship with them in the current state of year 3. We don't see Zagger much on the ship, but yes, Zagger is somewhere on the ship.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that's not how the whole combining weapons thing is supposed to work. And yet somehow, despite how utterly ridiculous it is for one guy with 2 arms using 5 swords, he does manage to counter the monster's attack.
The 5 swords move is so ridiculous.
One of them being him. Noah puts Katana down for the count. Fortunately, that count isn't particularly...
And yeah, I did a Mythbusters reference in there. This was back when I still did references a little bit more often than I do now. It feels appropriate for Mayo to lean into to just sort of lean into the tropes of doing reviews a little bit more than others.
That's kind of awesome. So after wrecking Katana's ride and blasting the last cruiser,
I'm really flying a dragon.
They unleash their final finisher on the foul fencer by basically flying circles around him until he blows up. Yeah, that spell seal was kind of less awesome. But at least
and I did also intentionally choose that Mayo should be reviewing the Mystic Force episode of Super Megaforce. Again, so sort of laying the groundwork for her to actually have an adventure in the Mystic Force universe in the Sumerian Forest with episode 66 or 65. There.
Not great, not terrible, just okay. I mean, this seems to be pretty standard fare for Power Rangers. Monster shows up, beats up one of the Rangers, the Ranger figures out how to beat the monster, and saves the day. It's about as close to standard formula as you can come, but that Vulcan skull and something stupid. We do have some serious logic.
Yeah, I've seen the screenshots of Joe from Go Kaiser with the 5 swords on one hand. It looks somehow less ridiculous, I think, somehow. Yeah, Mystic Force is definitely, I'd say, underrated. I feel like the final arc is a little weak, but the middle arc, the middle third of it, I'd say, is pretty strong. And then Jungle Fury has RJ, which is great.
So there are a few things to go over real quick.
And here's Database hopping in for giving his little expert analysis to toss in, because I felt like we couldn't just leave that out.
Yep, not the best season, largely due to a super rush villain-packed Red Ranger-centric third act, ultimately leading to a very messy finale. But the supporting characters are giving great development throughout.
And here's my little...
things are pretty solid.
My little assessment of Mystic Force.
Pretty super door designs, and the overall theme of magical fantasy is, if nothing else, an interesting novelty.
There's a nice little nod to just an assessment of what Mystic Force is. I wish that I could have given more attention to Mystic Force. Specifically, there we go, looking up the wiki.
So, between that fascinating tidbit, the legendary Morris, and the plotline of learning a new fighting
I
technique...
feel like I had a little editing error in there, and I feel bad about that. I always hate whenever I can identify little errors. I think that Mayo was supposed to have a response there.
And finally, we just had really handled
so that was my bad.
Story as a third
but yeah, Mystic Force was one I really did want to address in year 3, but unfortunately didn't quite make the cut. Specifically because so much of it is just like 2-parters and 3-parters, and all the best episodes in there are 2-parters or 3-parters, and I couldn't figure out a good way to work in any of the single-parters into the plot of year 3 in a way that felt smooth with the story as I was working it. So that's one of the only ones where it felt like really a missed opportunity. The other season that doesn't get a second round of representation in year 3 is Operation Overdrive, and that's really because I just didn't want to focus on it during year 3.
What is it?
The sweet 3PO.
For what?
What does that stand for? I haven't decided yet. I'm a wandering guy right now. An alphabet soup. Yeah.
And I take it by the alarms and the no-no-no-no-nos that things are not going well?
Bingo.
It's supposed to be a no-no-no cat sound.
I think we have another tear.
What?
There we go. And that kicks off the arc for the remainder of the spring season. Whoop. Didn't mean to restart it. Because we needed to end on a little bit of a teaser there. And now we do need to sort of revisit that whole, bit of having to close a tear like we did at the end of year 1, but now with the new context of the team all working together, being more proactive against Alphabet Soup, and leading up to the introduction of T Omega, who is clearly much more relevant for the finale of year 2. And T Omega was actually a concept that I came up with not during year 1, but during the development of year 2, because T Omega was supposed to sort of take the place of having a monster for our new Power Rangers fight. Initially, I was going to have there being like a leader of the Alphabet Soup crew that Database was going to develop something of a rivalry with, and they were going to try and get like cybernetic implants to become more powerful. But then the T agents ended up becoming more and more of an appropriate threat throughout the course of year 1 until they got sucked into the portal. And I'm just like, okay, this I think is going to make a better source for a monster threat, rather than trying to make one of the other characters work, because originally it was going to be a character that was going to get kicked in the face by DB, and I wanted it to be like a big, tall, intimidating guy who then gets kicked in the face by DB, and so he wants to then try and one-up him and become more powerful and more powerful and more powerful. But then the person who I was going to have be the person kicked in the face, a guy who was a friend of mine who's 6'4", ended up having to bow out. And I didn't have any other of my tall friends who were available, and I needed to be a big guy for it to be appropriately jarring for DB to be kicking him in the face. So ultimately, I ended up changing it to be Guy getting kicked in the face, because while Guy wasn't, big and intimidating, he had a different intimidation factor from the long history with DB. And that just sort of derailed that whole plot line. And so instead, I decided to go with this different plot line that necessitated the creation of a new tear so that we could reintroduce the T agents into the plot as T Omega. So it was an interesting process evolving the story as I went through. One of the nice things with just how many episodes we were doing back then was that I would often have a lot of lead time for foreshadowing. So, like, I would know what I was going to be doing for an episode 20 episodes down the line. And so I would have always that big lead time to be able to lay those bits of foreshadowing. So, like, right here, I'm very much trying to lay in the foreshadowing, lay down the groundwork for, the end of the Spring Saga when we were going to face T Omega, and then for the Summer Saga, where Mayo was going to get the magical tablet, and that was again drawn out of the feeling that I need to have a stronger character arc for Mayo, because Mayo had been something of the damsel in distress / love interest character for year 1. I wanted there to be more to her, and not fall into those into those kinds of tropes. And it felt, and in seeking it out, I've found okay, I'm going to be having a Mystic Force episode coming up here. There's one of the first episodes of Super Megaforce is a Mystic Force tribute. Maybe I could do something there. And I knew that I wanted to have the Evil DB arc as sort of a nod to the original Green Ranger arc during the latter chunk of year 2. And having the magic powers being linked to a form of exorcism felt appropriate. So that was kind of how I started that thread of Mayo slowly becoming sort of a powerhouse for later on in year 2, thanks to her new teleportation and exorcism abilities, which, have obviously been very helpful to the character up to this point. Not quite enough to take down the landlord, but enough to cure the Morpotsners and cure DB and all that other stuff that ended up paying off in a big way towards the end of year 2. And yeah, with Operation Overdrive, as I see people discussing it over here, I feel like it's not. It was less a matter of intertwining ideas, and actually, from my perspective, one of the issues with the plot was actually sort of the lack of them, which is weird to say. The thing is that it was a very linear plot. It wasn't so much that there were intertwining ideas, but interlocking episodes where every episode led distinctly to the next. But the thing was that it was always the same connection. It was just, here's the next piece, here's the next piece, here's the next piece, gem. Next clue, next clue, next clue, gem. Next clue, next clue, next clue, gem. But there was no reason for it to be that linear. There was no reason that, the clue that they would find would lead them to a specific gem in that particular way. It's not like anyone had specifically hidden the gems in these specific places. And there was a lot of weird stuff in that regard. And then it felt like we weren't really getting any character arcs. And the one character arc that I was interested in was Max, which ended up getting spoiled. I felt in a bad way with Ronnie on Empty, and didn't pay off in a way that I felt was thematically resonant with the rest of the season. So I had a lot of issues with Overdrive, and just the individual character focuses. Each one made me dislike the characters a little bit more. Just a lot of little things that just led to a lot of big frustrations when it came to my relationship with Overdrive. There was definitely some ambitious stuff in there. Production was solid, all that. Just a lot of the thematics and the approach to storytelling and character did not work for me. It's why it's such a frustrating season for me. Whereas with Mystic Force, which has also gotten quite a bit of dismissal over the years, I feel it's really the finale and the final arc that hurts Mystic Force. They got some great supporting characters. The first arc is solid. The middle arc is actually pretty dang good, where they are setting up the reveal of Nick being the son of Udana and Lianbo. And it's just that after that point, the fact that it was the first season to be cut down to only 32 episodes instead of 38 really started to show with the whole 10 Terrors arc. And you got to see, they really did not pace themselves well for their final arc to have 10 villains, which, I can't entirely blame them. They started production before that arc had aired, and then once they had that arc to work with, they just had to kind of fly through it as quickly as they could. Once Nick had been revealed as the Chosen One, they suddenly had all this focus on him, and it was rough. Honestly, if they had been just a little bit quicker, I think, on the first arc to tighten that up, to give them a little bit more room to focus on the other characters during the final arc, I think that Mystic Force would have come off a lot stronger. The finale is still kind of a mess, but it was the pacing, I think, that really hurt them with that 32 episode season. So that was a whole tangent about other Power Rangers season. But yeah, I enjoyed this episode because it's again just a chance for the characters to just be themselves with each other, um, get more of a feel of what they're feeling with regards to the plot that they're in, specifically through the lens of Mayo. Um, and it's one of those things that you can really only do at that sort of middle chapter. During the first chunk of episodes, it's always about getting to meet them for the first time and introducing everything. And then the final arc, it's all about them racing towards the culmination of all these different plot threads. But right here in the middle, we get to take like sort of a nice little beat to just be like, okay, we know who they are to an extent and where things are going to an extent. But let's just take a little beat to find out how they feel about it. So that was one of the things I'm really glad I got to do with year 2. I honestly had briefly had considered for a time having Mayo's arc in year 2 involve her cubicle job and having to deal with that and like alphabet soup sort of infiltrating her cubicle job, and it just ended up feeling a little too clunky and a little too much to try and make work from a production standpoint, because I didn't have like a cubicle setting to work with, and so that's why I wrote in the whole bit of not having to go to work anymore and starting to tease the stuff about witness protection. So there were a lot of different things that I was playing with as far as what I had in mind for year 2 that, as you can tell, didn't quite pan out. But I'm quite happy with how things ended up going with Mayo. Even if people sometimes think of her tablet as being a little bit of a Deus Ex Machina for the last chunk of the season, I feel like it ended up tying well into everything. Especially as we find that we're, getting closer towards the finale in the stories we're going along right now. And yeah, Dyrano, I get why you can be in favor of the higher episode counts as well. Usually the higher episode counts do tend to pay off pretty well for Power Rangers. I feel like you can do a shorter season and have it work. But I feel like, as rough as that is to say, I feel like the storytelling focus of Power Rangers has never quite been strong enough to really pull off a tight, shorter season. Like, there are plenty of shows that have, shorter seasons. Like, 20 episodes in a season is not unusual. 13 episodes in a season is not unusual. The first season of Breaking Bad was like 6 episodes, and it was a highly acclaimed television show. But the thing is, there needs to be a really, really tight, honed focus there, and really, really high level of skill that, like, I absolutely like and respect many of the people who've worked on Power Rangers, but I don't think it's unreasonable to say that the people who work on these Emmy-winning shows are at a different skill level than most television writers. So it might not be a reasonable expectation to get that level of character development in those shorter seasons. As much as I think it is possible, I recognize that at this stage it's probably not a reasonable expectation. Now, how do I think that that things are going to go with Dino Fury once it hits Netflix? I do not know. I'm not expecting much to change in terms of the season structure. It's going to be 20. It's going to be another 22 episodes, I expect. I'm expecting things to be largely structured the same way as the first season. Handful of standalone episodes, continuing to build on the little mysteries that they've laid out until we get to some resolution on that. I'll be addressing this in my deeper looks tomorrow, but I do feel like the first half of Dino Fury was very much focused on on setup rather than payoff. So I'm interested in seeing what the payoff will be in the second season of Dino Fury. How do I feel about the 2-season story arcs, the 2-season installments of Power Rangers? I'm not really sure. I go back and forth on it sometimes. It's definitely an interesting approach to storytelling. So I'm always interested in seeing how they pull it off. I'm not sure if it's for the best or not. It definitely allows you to make better use of the footage if you do get that longer episode count. You do get to know the characters a bit better. But it's hard to say if it leads to the best stories or not, which is really, I think, what you're kind of aiming for to an extent. So I'm not sure what my actual opinion is of the formula anymore. I've gone back and forth on it a number of times over the years. Like, I got a little frustrated by it early on. I felt at first that Samurai didn't handle it right, and then Megaforce and Super Megaforce could have done it right, but then didn't pull it off. And then I really wanted to see them try and see if they could pull off a good, strong season with only 20 episodes, but then they went back to the 2-part seasons, and then they started to experiment more with it, and I don't know, they may have, after 10 years, possibly won me over. I'm not really sure. Power Rangers has changed so much over the course of the last, 3 decades, that it's hard to really settle on what's the best approach when it comes to the show, because there have been so many different versions of it. Yeah, a lot of shows are, much shorter seasons nowadays. But anywho, we've got plenty more stuff to discuss. Well, I guess next year, because our next live stream will be on New Year's Day. It is going to be on a Saturday because next Friday is going to be the release of Database Rangers Power Reviews episode 95. So I'm really looking forward to you guys seeing that. I've put so much work into it over the course of the last several years. This episode is definitely up there in terms of challenging episodes I have done. And I'm hoping that you'll understand what I mean by that when you actually see it. It's just and I'm looking forward to talking about it once it's actually out. Because it's stuff that has been set up for a long time. I've been teasing stuff for, I've been teasing what is coming for episode 95 since before year 3 started. There's going to be some effect sequences that I think are some of the best stuff that I've done, effect sequence-wise. I'm not saying that they're necessarily amazing or anything, but I think they're some of the best work that I've done. And I hope that it's satisfying for everybody. I know it's been a long wait. I was really hoping that I'd be able to get 94 out in June. I was really hoping I'd be able to get 93 out in the spring, 94 out in June, and then 95 during the summer when I had more time to work on it, but everything kind of got slipped down the road, so 95 is really coming out when 96 was planned to be released. But I think 96 is going to be slightly more doable than 95. Same thing with 97. And then 98, 99, and 100 are just going to be insane. There's no getting around it. The final run of episodes is just going to be insane. So I've got a lot of work. Not to mention next year we got to start looking for a house. So there's so much to do in this next year. But I'm committed to releasing approximately an episode every 2 months for the next 10 months to make it to the end of this series. Dyrano, to answer your question, I have not seen Spider-Man No Way Home. I am considering seeing it. I have not gone to see any of the MCU Spider-Man movies. A lot of that has been due to sore feelings over the loss of the Amazing Spider-Man franchise. So, based off of what I've seen hinted at happening in No Way Home, and my affection for the Amazing Spider-Man franchise, I may eventually see it. I don't know if I'll be seeing it in theaters because, we have major pandemic spiking, so I don't plan on seeing anything in theaters right now. But I'm heavily considering seeing it at some point. I go back and forth. So, yeah, gotta love long-term storyline payoffs that aren't dropped and forgotten about. Yeah, I've had a lot of these long-term storylines in mind for a very long time, and I'm hoping there'll be a satisfying payoff for you guys. It's I think it's one that does ramp up the stakes to a certain extent. So I hope that you will all enjoy it, and actually one thing I'm thinking of doing, considering I was saying, as we're working towards the end of Power Reviews, I think I may put out a poll on Twitter or something just to see what people would like to see with regards to the direction of the channel moving forward. I'm still trying to decide exactly what I want to do with all this once Power Reviews is done. And I don't know. We're coming up on 10 years, and I don't know where I want to go after that. I don't know if I'm still going to keep doing episodic reviews of Power Rangers episodes or not, or what structure they might be in. It has been challenging keeping up with the rapid run-throughs and deeper looks, so I don't know if I'll keep doing those past the second season of Dino Fury. Or if I might just try doing something entirely different instead. So, any thoughts that you guys have, feel free to share them. And keep spreading word of the channel. We are, I think we're at like 107 subscribers away from 4,000, and I'd really love to hit 4,000 soon if we could. It's been such a long road, and if we could get to like 5,000 by the finale of Power Reviews, it would make me so happy. But that's probably been enough out of me. I have 4 videos, 2 rapid run-throughs and 2 deeper looks to release for tomorrow, so I gotta get back to work on those. So thank you so much for joining me on this Christmas Eve. I will almost certainly not be doing an animated Database Ranger series without, like, a budget and a studio. Like, I'm sorry, this does not count as a studio, and I do not count as a budget. I would need a team, and like a whole thing to make that work. But before we leave, as always, our 3 remaining equally non-controversial phrases. So, number 1, say it with me, chat. Love is love. Number 2, say it with me, chat. Trans rights are human rights. And number 3, say it with me, chat. Robots are cool. And with all that, a Merry Christmas to all a good night, and until next time, farewell, Ranger fans, and let the power protect you. I'll see you next year.